Hello and good morning. It's Phil Thatch, and Heather and I are here this morning at a roadside attraction called Gatorland, which is famous for having lots and lots of alligators. But we're not here for the alligators, we're here for the birds. The rookery here is pretty much world famous. Arthur Morris comes here regularly and does photography, and we're here kind of at the wrong time of year. We're here in mid-July, which is probably the worst time of year to come here for bird photography, but that's what time we happen to be in Orlando, so that's what time we are coming here to check it out. This is where Canon brought a lot of the big YouTubers when they first announced the R7. They brought them here prior to that announcement and let them have some hands-on bird photography, and they picked Gatorland to do that. We were already planning to come here before Canon did that with their R7s, and we didn't even know when we made our plans to come here if we would have R7s, because at that time they hadn't even announced them. We planned to come here months and months ago, but now here we are at Gatorland with our brand new R7s. Well, we are in the park now. We haven't made it back to the rookery yet, but you can see why this place is known as a bird photography location. I'm standing about 2.5 feet from a snowy egret. Okay, so now we have made it back to the breeding marsh, which is where the birds, these are wild birds. The alligators are here not by choice, or they were bred here, but the birds are here by choice. And what it is this alligator farm area, it gets rid of all the natural predators like raccoons and things like that for these birds, so they breed here. And we hope to take advantage of that. Here is a tricolored heron right there at Gatorland. This was probably the most common bird, at least back in the rookery area. Here is a great egret, and if you look in the background, you can see a really large alligator just sitting there right beside this great egret. Here's another shot of that same scene. I thought it was really cool looking. A lot of times the alligators and the birds aren't very close together, but they were very close together in that shot. Here is another tricolored heron. We took a number of photographs of this particular tricolored heron. Here is a white ibis. I really liked this particular area with the shallow water and the beautiful plants. Now here are some of Heather's photographs. This is that same tricolored heron with the spindly feathers sticking up off its heads. We think it might be a slightly sub-adult tricolored heron. And here is another one of Heather's photographs of another tricolored heron. Just beautiful birds that you don't see too often back home in Tennessee. Here is a white ibis. I love the bokeh in the background on this shot of Heather's and the beautiful blue eye of the white ibis. And this is a boat-tailed grackle female that Heather photographed there at Gatorland. Here is the Derpy. We love to say Derpy. This is the Derpy tricolored heron with the spindly feathers. And here is another photograph of that same tricolored heron that we photographed quite a bit, both Heather and I, there at Gatorland. Even though it's July, we've still found 2 nests of little blue heron. They are way back in the mangroves, though. We found some empty nests that were, I mean, literally 2 or 3 feet from the handrail. I got a photograph of one of the adult little blue heron. The juveniles, the babies in the nest, will be more difficult. This is Heather's photograph of the very young little blue heron in the nest. I didn't get a photograph of these, and I'm so glad that Heather did, because it's really cool to see them this young in the nest. And here is another photograph of our friend, the Derpy, slightly sub-adult tricolored heron. I found some baby common gallinule over here. We've photographed common gallinule a few times over the years, but this is the first time we've ever seen babies. Heather did a really nice job photographing these 2 young common gallinule there at Gatorland, and look at their wings. They don't have hardly any feathers on them, and while I didn't catch a decent photograph of the young common gallinule, I did make this video clip of one swimming around, used the Canon R7 and the 100 to 500 lens for this clip. We are definitely not here for the alligators, but they are everywhere. Look at that one. Those 2 are having a tussle out there, or 3. I came around to this area kind of on the back side of the rookery and alligator breeding area, I guess. And there's a bunch of black vultures. There's a thick fence you have to shoot through here, but the shot came out pretty good with a good sun angle on some black vultures. This photograph kind of reminded me of being at a baseball game making photos through a fence, but it did come out pretty nice with the good sun angle on these two black vultures. I came up here on the tower, and over there in that tree behind me there's Anhinga with chicks on the nest. Here's the Anhinga with chicks. I think it had 3 there, and it was cool to be up on the 3rd floor of the platform and be able to kind of look down into this nest. I only shared a couple of photographs of it, but I made way more than that, and I really thought it was a beautiful sight to see. Heather had found an adult and juvenile little blue heron down here at the boardwalk, and she texted me and told me to come back down. So I'm down here now. Here is a beautiful adult little blue heron, and it was really nice to see it. And here comes some juvenile little blue heron. Now these are still juveniles, but they're older than the ones that Heather photographed on the nest. And you can see this one and this next photograph, it's very well back into the brush, but I did the best I could capturing as much of it as I could. Now I'm not sure if this next one is the same age as those, or if this little blue heron is a little bit older than those others, but it was nice to photograph it out in the open. Now here is an Anhinga in the water, and if the sun catches their eyes, they turn deep ruby red, which I thought was really cool. And here is another shot of the juvenile little blue heron there in the brush at Gatorland. Here are Heather's photographs of the beautiful little blue heron. She said this is her favorite heron, and she does a fantastic job with her edit, making them look oh so beautiful. Look at all the great colors and the way the eye just really pops in these images. And look at that beautiful bird. We were so happy to see them. You don't see them back home in Tennessee very often, and we were thrilled to see this little blue heron there at Gatorland. We expected to see lots of tricolored heron, but we were really happy to see the little blue heron. And this is a little blue heron juvenile that Heather photographed as well. And in the next shot, Heather has captured the amazing ruby eyes of the Anhinga that was there. I think it's the same one that I had photographed. Here's another photograph that Heather made of the beautiful juvenile little blue heron. And next up, there's a photograph that Heather made of our Derpy friend, the slightly subadult tricolored heron. Heather made a few photographs of alligators. Here is a close-up headshot of an alligator, and you can see that alligators have pretty eyes as well. And here's kind of an artsy shot that Heather turned to black and white of this alligator as it was floating along. Here's a photograph Heather made of a great egret as it's coming in for a landing. Really cool. Maybe her first in-flight shot of the video. And here is a beautiful white ibis that's dipped its beak into the water there at Gatorland. And here is another Anhinga. This is one that was up in some of the bushes there at Gatorland that Heather photographed there. Right behind me there is a nest of tricolored heron, and very young ones in there, but there's so much to shoot through. It's very hard to get one of the young ones in focus. I probably attempted it for 10 minutes and made many shots and maybe got maybe one in focus. The focus difficulties on these is not because the camera won't focus, it's because usually their head is buried down in the twigs, and when they come up, they're usually behind a twig, which makes it difficult to focus. But every once in a while, you'll catch them like this with nothing in front of their eye. As is often the case in July in Florida, the wading bird you see most is the tricolored heron, and we've seen quite a few of those. But that's okay, because back home in Tennessee, you virtually never see one, so we always enjoy photographing them. Apparently this great egret is a fan of Ronnie James Dio doing the metal symbol there. And here is a photograph that I had to crop smaller than 4K in size, even with that huge 32.5 megapixel sensor in-flight white ibis. Here's a tricolored heron standing on the edge of the dock, and you can see looming in the distance is an alligator. Here's another tricolored heron there back in the bushy area. A lot of beautiful color in a tricolored heron, just like its name would suggest. And here is an in-flight photograph of a black vulture that I was happy to capture there as it flew over the water below. And here is our Derpy friend, the tricolored heron, doing some fishing. I thought that was a really cool area, And also here's a photograph of a female boat-tailed grackle that was there in the mangroves. Heather and I took a break and got some Gatorade, and on the way back to the marsh we found these two beautiful parrots here and made some photos of them. And there's also some giant tortoise in this area. Now these are actually captive birds. The ones that we've been photographing before this are wild. These two parrots are yellow-headed Amazon, and we were really happy to see them, and it was fun to photograph them. I made this shot here, and then I've got kind of a juxtaposition shot here with one in the foreground sharp in focus and the other one bokeh-fied in the background. Here are Heather's photographs of the yellow-headed Amazon parrots in that same area, the same birds. Just really beautiful and fun to photograph. You know, we don't have wild parrots here in the United States. I have learned that there are some feral parrots that might be seen in the wild in the United States, but not too much in Tennessee. So we were thrilled to photograph these parrots there at Gatorland. We came back over to the rookery after we took pictures of the parrots, and I showed Heather where the tricolored heron nest was, and she managed to get a good shot of one of the chicks. So that's pretty awesome. Here's Heather's photograph of the very young tricolored heron, and just like in my photograph, you can see the legs of the adult there flanking the baby in the nest. And next up is my photograph of a beautiful white ibis in flight over the water there at Gatorland. And here's a white ibis. This is kind of back in the back where we saw the derpy tricolored heron quite a bit. I really love that area, the beautiful flowers, and you can see the sky reflecting in the water. They have a zip line over the gator pit, which is crazy, and a lot of people were taking advantage of it. It looked kind of fun. Here is our derpy friend, the tricolored heron. This is a 100mm shot that I made holding the camera over my head. And here is a beautiful great egret that Heather photographed there at Gatorland. Look at that neck like an S. The Gatorland video was starting to get to be so long that I decided to break it into two parts. So this is going to be the end of part one of our Gatorland bird photography video. And be sure to join us in part two, where we'll go up to the front of the park and work on some birds in flight and lots of snowy egrets. So thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thumbs up, subscribe. Thanks again. Bye-bye.